Welcome back to Mic Drop Mondays. Today we're breaking down the NALC rap session, the energy, the conversation, and the leadership. If you weren't there, don't worry, we've got you. Let's talk about it. What went down and why it matters. Let's drop it.
All right, everyone, welcome to another edition of Mic Drop Mondays. It is November 23rd. We are going to talk today about the rap session and the workshops that took place over the weekend in Cleveland, Ohio. I am back home. I think one of our guests is en route getting back home, and I think two of our guests are still out there in Cleveland. So we'll start, I guess, by you guys introducing yourselves a little bit, find out a little bit about your background so we know what we're dealing with here, and then we'll get into hearing from you guys as far as your feedback on how things went over the weekend. I guess, Wayne, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. My name's Wayne Harlow. I'm the South Carolina State President, local president of Branch 439 in Greenville, South Carolina. I started at the post office in 1985 as a clerk down in South Florida, transferred to Greenville, South Carolina as a carrier in 86. Been an NALC member for 38 years. Been doing union steward work, probably state president, probably I think around 2002, 2003.
And how long have you been coming to like the conventions and the rap sessions? Do you go to all of them?
When I took over around 2002, I pretty much I've been to all the national conventions, and I think all of the rap sessions. I think I've pretty much hit them all.
Yeah, there'll be a national convention in the even years. That's a 5-day thing. That's a whole big deal.
Yes.
And then the rap sessions, or what do they call them? The national conference. That's the technical term in the Constitution. But those will be in the odd years, every other year when there's not a convention. So, yeah, I started going in I think 2000. Well, I think I went to my first state convention like 99 or 98. And then ever since then, I just go to everything, you know. And I think you're kind of the same way.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get all of my stewards to at least visit one national convention, because it's the first time I went, I was in awe with all the people there and all that. So, anybody that hasn't been to a national convention really ought to try to get to one to see how everything works. It's totally unexpected your first time out there.
I agree 1,000%. The convention was here in Chicago in 2022, and I was just trying to get everyone, like you said, just if you get a day off, if you get a couple hours, anyone can go as a guest. You're a member of the union, come
Yes.
check it out. But yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Next year, the convention, just FYI, the convention will be in Los Angeles in 2026, and then Minneapolis in 2028, and then 2030 will be Honolulu, Hawaii. We don't know. The rap sessions, usually get announced like, 2027, 2029 rap session. We won't know until we get there. Saqia, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Oh, great. So tell us a little bit about your history with the post office, with the union, and if you've ever been to any one of these things before, and, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've been in the post office about 7 years. I am currently the HBR for Branch 274. Next year, I will be transitioning to be the legislative rep. I've been involved with the union for about pretty much since I started. I started as the HBR, I believe, like 2 years ago, and I've been coming to the sessions. I went to the first rap session, I believe, in like 2023. I went to the convention in Boston. I don't go to everything, but I do come to the things like pertinent to my position or like new branch or union news.
Yeah, and 2023 that was New Orleans, right? The rap session in 2023.
No, maybe I have the dates wrong. I went to the rap session that was in Atlantic City.
Atlantic City. Maybe that was that the Committee of Presidents? Wasn't it 2023 in New Orleans?
Yeah, the last one was New Orleans, and I think
Okay.
Houston before that. Or no, Houston might have been
Nah,
further
Houston
back.
was
Yeah, the last one was
Houston
New
further back.
Orleans.
Yeah, I think that's
Way
right.
back.
I think there
That's
was not a national convention in 2020, and I don't think there was a rap session in 2021. I think 2019 might have been in Denver, and maybe 2017 was in Houston, but I don't know. But New Orleans, I'm pretty sure was 2023. Saqia, you probably went to the. Let's see, you could have went to the like regional rap session.
Probably.
Like Region 12 has a lot of things in Atlantic City.
Yes.
By the way, you didn't say, you said 274, but that's Allenton, Pennsylvania,
Yes.
which is like just north of Philadelphia. Like what, about an hour north of Philadelphia?
Yeah, about an hour north.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it could have been a regional rap session or committee of presidents meeting, because there's been a lot of.
I think it was a regional rap session.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would have been Region 12, because all of Pennsylvania is in Region 12.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. This was probably, I guess this would have been your first national rap session, but you were at the national convention in Boston last year as well.
Yes, correct.
Got you. Okay, awesome. We'll get your feedback in just 1 second. We gotta get to Sherrie. She's in the dark. She's gonna tell us what cornfield she's going through and what's going on out there.
So I started at the post office in 2003 as a PMR, which is a postmaster relief, in a small town in Wisconsin, Browntown. We just had one rural route is all. And then I went to become a TE letter carrier in Janesville, Wisconsin. And I'm currently still there. So I've been in the post office for 22 years. Unfortunately, only 10 of those count towards retirement. I'm currently the branch president. I've been that since 2019. I also serve on the state, Wisconsin State Board as the Southwest District Rep and the state chair.
Okay. Hey, Sherrie, and this is what he told me. I don't know if it's true or not, but I was told that the Janesville, Wisconsin branch is known as the Rich Anderson branch. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, he would love. Oh, he would love to hear that you said that. Yeah, he's the smartest man, you know.
Well, he will tell you that. He will tell you that.
So he says.
And
Or his famous words are. Yeah, his famous words always were, "I'm pretty important," or "I'm a big deal," And then the other thing is, I'm the vice president of the Rich Anderson Club. So he was
the fan club. Yeah, he's the president of his own fan club.
He always says that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as how long you been the president? 2019?
Since 2019.
Yeah.
2019.
And when did you
And
start
before that, I was the vice president.
Okay. When did you start coming to like conventions and rap sessions and stuff like that?
Since 2016, I went to my first convention, which is in LA.
Yeah, it was in LA. Yeah.
Yep. It was
LA
awesome.
2016, 2018 was Detroit. Did you go to the rap session in 2017?
The one in Denver?
Oh, Denver was 2017. What was 2019?
I must not have went to that one because my first one was Denver. And then I did go to New Orleans.
There was a New Orleans, there was a Denver, and there was a Houston, but we're missing one. There's something else.
Yeah, the only ones I went, was Denver and New Orleans.
You know what? There was an Atlantic City.
I didn't go to that one.
There was an Atlantic City rap session, and it was when we got one of the contracts. So which contract would that have been? You had a 26.
Yeah.
It must have been 2017, must have been in Atlantic City. Help me out here, Wayne. I think Houston 2015, Atlantic City 2017, and Denver 2019. That's what I'm going with. What do you guys think? What do you think, Wayne?
That sounds good to me. I was thinking that the 2013 one was when they had the CCAs thing, if I remember right.
Yep.
Because I think that was the first time I'd gone to Atlantic City when the new classification of CCAs came out.
And maybe that was in Atlantic City as well. I know that. Anyway, I know that at least in my mind, the 2017 one was in Atlantic City because I remember we had an Illinois State Convention at the same time, and we went to Atlantic City, and then we went to the convention, and I was the business agent at that time, and I became a business agent in 2014. But I do remember the 2013 rap session. I don't remember where it was, but I know we talked a lot about, that's when we first got the DOS award, the CCA classification, and all those issues. But we also talked a lot about organizing because a lot of the CCAs were not joining the union, and it was a whole deal. And the numbers were really down as far as organized. But since then, we've done really good. Our union is very, very well organized, and everyone's a member. But anyway, so Sherrie, I guess we'll go back in reverse order. You want to start with just your feedback? What'd you think? What was the good and bad? What'd you like? What was it was a different format this time. That's why I was kind of asking you guys if you've been to one of these rap sessions before, because normally we'll have like regular training sessions, like training on different articles of the contract or a certain memorandum or a certain program or whatever, and then we'll get into the rap session. The rap session was about the same format this time as it normally is, but the Saturday was completely different format. So what did you think about it, Sherrie?
Yeah, because I've been to other ones where they had workshops where you were learning and stuff. I did like the fact that they let us have like a round table and kind of told us see what our thoughts were and what our priorities were on some of the things that they laid out. However, I do wish they would have told us, like, what is it that management wants? What's the Postal Service wants, instead of always what we want? Because sometimes I think maybe what you guys or whoever's doing the negotiation, what you guys think we want to give up to get something better might have changed.
What do you think the number one thing management wants out of the new contract? If you could say one thing, what do you think it would be?
Oh, to not pay us.
So keep wages low, or what?
Keep wages low.
Not many increases, not cost of living, that kind of thing. Maybe. I know they would love to expect the number of non-career employees is going down. The cost of the Postal Service for a career employee versus a non-career employee is a lot. I know that's major,
obviously they don't. I always think this is the weirdest thing about this organization is they so desperately need people to come and work here, and they beg for people to come and work here. But the minute you get here, they're trying to find ways to get rid of you every day, putting people on EP for just stupid things, and that's just ridiculous. And then some of the other things that they, like the hiring process. I don't know if you were there when I had brought up about the fact that when someone gets hired in a PTF office and they want to go to another PTF office where it's a shorter distance or whatever, and they tell them, well, we can only do that if you quit and have to be rehired. But then it takes so long to get them off the rolls, and then that position is gone. They need to do something different on that end.
Yeah, I remember when you said it because I chimed in. I forget, there was a little conversation about it. And then I chimed in because I remember in the last round of contract negotiations, we had put forth a proposal. Last time we put forth 209 proposals, meaning that, so just for a little background, there's bargaining subcommittees internal to the union that meet and go over the various articles in the contract and look for ways we can make improvements, look for ways that the members have expressed changes that they'd like to see through convention resolutions, look at language in other contracts with other postal unions. So we go through that process, and we went through the same process last time, but this time there's many, many more people involved in that process. But don't think we didn't have proposals last time too. We did. And that one of them was that Postal Service have to put one letter carrier per district on the clock, to help them out in the hiring process, to facilitate, to work with the new hires, to vet people, to advertise, to, there's so many, they just do a really lousy job of promoting the job, especially the career job. If you go to USPS.com/careers, you cannot find the career PTF letter carrier job. I mean, you can, but it's an Easter egg hunt. Like, it's not readily
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I've actually had a lot of people complain about that. Like they just make it way too hard.
Yeah. Yeah, but just some of the geographical things, and there's so many things to it. But this process, once at least on Saturday. Well, first we had 3 rank and file committees that went out there in the DC area, and they have their own proposals, kind of thing. And then everybody that attended the RAP session over the weekend was able to hear from all of the bargaining committees and give their input as well. So that kind of added their voice to the thing, which is something I don't recall us ever doing before. So I thought that was pretty cool. Saqia, what'd you think?
Hi. I thought it was really cool hearing about all the proposals and how all of the different committees work. A lot of what I've seen in the past was like Brian Renfro talking a lot about like the financial part of the contract negotiations and not getting too much into the other articles that we're negotiating on. So I thought that was good, but it also felt a lot like they were placating us. Like I remember the Boston convention, everyone was very upset about the lack of transparency, and it felt like he was putting everything out there, but also every time a speaker got up, they would just repeatedly say, well, these are just the proposals. Remember, we can't get all of this. Like, these are just like what everyone's asking for. And it almost felt like I like that they were showing us more of the process and how it's like not all financial, but it almost felt like defeatist. Like, we're not getting any of this. We're just telling you what everyone's asking for.
So from your point of view, what is important in the contract? Like, when you look at the terms of the contract, obviously some of them are financial and some of them are not. Some of them are just kind of work rules or procedures in place or whatever. Like, what is important to you in a contract, or in our contract, I guess, specifically?
I think for me, it's more holistic. It's not any one particular thing. It is about just the environment and feeling appreciated. I do agree with Sherrie. I would have loved to know like what management's position was, like something more concrete besides just, the post office is broke, so don't expect anything. If like we knew what management's position was and why they had to give up certain positions, that would be more clarifying. Um, and just, I would like to feel like the people on the board understood why the rank and file were making these suggestions, why they mattered to all of us, and not just saying, this is what you asked for, we'll fight for it, but understand you're probably not going to get it.
Yeah, let's talk about that in a minute. Let's go to Wayne first and get his first impressions. I'll come back to that, Saqia. What'd you think, Wayne?
Yeah,
Real
my
different than
internet's
what we're
going
used
in
to,
and
huh?
out. So yeah, if I, yes, I will say I was impressed with it. After going to many of these, I just figured there was going to be the regular training that we do, on the Saturday. It was good to see what is going on inside. I know the big thing everybody's talked about is transparency. In 20 years, I've never seen that other side of what's going on. And while I understand, and I know you're going to come back to this, well, it's not what you're going to get. When I talk to the carriers at the Carrier Academy for organizing, and I explain a little bit about what the democracy part of the NALC, where, you have people that are in regular post offices delivering mail that can make a resolution that ends up was the overtime and the double time pay. I believe we got that in arbitration right before I started. And I'm sure a lot of these we might not get, but I would have never thought we'd have gotten something like that. Or when we went to arbitration and got level 6 pay. So to me, it was good. It was refreshing to see the other side, knowing that they looked at resolutions going back to 1970. I enjoyed that. I thought it was pretty good. I know that there were some union people that didn't come to this meeting because they didn't think it was going to be anything different than what we've had in the past. And they didn't come because they had just been to, whether it was a regional RAP session or the committee of presidents meeting down in Orlando, and they figured it would be the same thing. It wasn't. I thought it was good. I enjoyed listening to every different article and the different things. I wrote down more notes for my members and for the state when I write my article than I think I've ever written at any national convention or RAP session. So I thought it was good. That's just my opinion, but I thought it was good.
Yeah. I took a lot of notes as well. And I think that traditionally, well, I don't know. I wasn't around, going back all them years, but I know when I first started going to national conventions, national RAP sessions, there would be training classes in conjunction with the RAP session and the convention. And these were things that we were not getting, but I think today's NALC, it's not uniform, but there's a lot of training out there, particularly for people that are presidents. And the RAP session is, focused on the presidents, not only the presidents, but you're talking about presidents and people that come from the branches, but a lot of presidents and a lot of people that have been to a lot of training. And so to put on the same training, is not as valuable as probably what we ended up doing on Saturday. I think it was more valuable. When you say see the other side, what exactly does that mean for you? The other side of what? I wasn't sure what that meant. You remember saying that?
Just when, I think, was that when
you're talking about the other
seeing
side?
The other side, meaning,
was it the post? The other side is not the post office. The other side is the
what I was meaning by seeing the other side. No, I meant seeing the side where people think that, and I've heard some of those comments too this week. Whether it was people talking at the mic about, it feels like when somebody says we're not going to get all this stuff, I can see the side of those people that kind of feel that defeated side that Sandra was talking about, where it just doesn't sound like that. I don't know if that's the other side I was talking about. The people that a lot of times, let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff on there that management is never going to agree to. It's going to have to be stuff that would have to be argued through arbitration, like when we got level 6 pay. But knowing that management's never going to agree to it doesn't mean it will never happen. And I can totally understand a lot of people that think when that is said that, these are all the things, because Article 8, there was, I don't know, I had to pay notes on Article 8. Not going to get all that stuff. But you still put that stuff out there because there's a good chance we can get some of that stuff. Might be through arbitration, but management, I think we all know management's not going to come in and say, yeah, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that, we're going to give you whatever you want. But I don't think that means that we're not going to get any of it. I think there's a lot of good ideas out there, and I think there's a lot of stuff out there that could help the post office, whether it's retention or, Article 8s, that there's things out there that can help the post office. I think they talked about overtime tracking, having the steward do it with the manager every week to eliminate the high payouts of not being equitable. We've been doing that the last 2 quarters, and it has saved grievances and the post office money. So there's a lot of ideas in there that if it's used right, we might be able to get this, which would help management lower their cost here, and might be able to get something, because we're helping you here, get something over here. That's kind of what I meant on
I get it.
The defeatist. I don't want to say a defeatist attitude, because I don't believe that for a minute. I believe everybody out there is 100% going to get what they can. Every one of those committees is going to do the best thing that they can. And so I kind of, when I hear defeatist, that was the other side that I was kind of referring to.
No, I got you. So there's a lot of going back to what you said, Saqia, about a holistic approach. And so we're still early in the process. And, kudos to President Renfro, in my opinion, for really getting the process going early, which gives us a chance to kind of, come together and figure out where we're going. So like, as an example, we didn't start this process and we didn't involve nearly the number of members that we're doing this time. But we didn't start this process until after negotiations began last time in 2023. After negotiations began, we broke out into committees, and we made pretty quick work because we were working a lot. So it took us maybe about 30 days. And by the end of March, we had submitted those, like I said, 209 proposals. And then to me, the whole thing fell apart from there. But it doesn't do us much good to, rehash, old events or whatever. But this time we have time because negotiations will open on, President Renfro did announce on today at the RAP session that the negotiations will begin on February the 25th. So we know that's our start date, and we know that's, was that 3 months from now? So it's still a lot of time. Not just, in my opinion, to figure out what we want, because there's a lot of things that we want, but to figure out how we're going to get there, and to figure out how can we convince the Postal Service to work with us to get a contract that works. To me, this current structure does not work for the Postal Service, and it does not work for us. And a lot of the managers, just kind of don't care about the Postal Service. They're losing money. They're inefficient. The service sucks. The employees are angry. They might not care about none of that. But there's somebody in the post office going up the hierarchy, right? The people that, take the Postmaster General or whatever. There's people in the hierarchy of the Postal Service that do care about the result there. So if we can get to those people at that level and say, hey, work with us to try to resolve some of these issues. And so some of those examples could be the retention program, right? The Postal Service hires a lot of people and they don't stick around, and then they got to train new people, and that costs some money. There's no consistency. It's hard to get someone that's familiar with the routes, and the service standards are deteriorated when you have a revolving door workforce. So how can we sit down with the Postal Service and say, hey, let's work together to work on a better hiring process, retention program? So for example, to me, one of the things is mandatory overtime. Because someone, we understand, and it's always been, if you're in your auxiliary workforce and you're just starting out, you don't have control over your hours. But when you become a full-time regular and you have your own assignment, it's just not reasonable. And particularly with today's workforce, wanting to have a work-life balance, which, great, that's a healthy thing. We're moving forward as society. And so you look at mandatory overtime as one of those issues where you're taking someone's ability to have a work-life balance away from them because of the Postal Service staffing issues. And so how do you get with the Postal Service and resolve that and say, what can we do? And maybe you just write it in there that there is no, like the rural carriers have language. There's no mandatory overtime off your assignment or on an NS day. Like if, you may have overtime on your own assignment, but you're not going to be forced on a vacant route, to deliver that mail. Or maybe you just say, hey, let's go through the pecking order of different things that you can do prior to getting to the point of mandating. And if you do get to the point of mandating, you got a staffing issue because you went through all the steps. And all the steps would be maximizing the auxiliary workforce, asking for volunteers amongst the non-ODL regular carriers, even asking if the ODL carriers want to volunteer past 12 hours because they can do that now. So, ask them if they want to volunteer, and even looking at carriers in other neighboring offices that might want that overtime. But if the Postal Service, we could get them to agree to that type of pecking order, and if that doesn't work, then you have a staffing. And so, do we have any control right now? Article 3 gives the Postal Service the exclusive right to do the hiring and the staffing and all that. We don't have any control over the complement. They come up with these numbers and they say, oh, we need 46 letter carriers there, but it's not really, based on anything. So that's just one example to me, there's a lot of examples. Does the Postal Service want us to look good and look professional out there? Because the current uniform program doesn't allow for that, So do they, as the employer, want us to look professional? Yes or no? Do they want to have a grievance process that works? I mean, how much money does the Postal Service spend on the grievance process? The people, the man hours, the payouts, the everything, wouldn't it make sense that we try to work together to come up with a process that works, together or whatever? Like I had the, and you guys probably saw me up there doing the whole spiel about the transfers. That was the segment I had from my bargaining committee. And the transfers, in theory, would be a situation that you could make some progress on because it doesn't cost the Postal Service anything. Now, we had one guy come to the mic and he said that if you transfer, like I guess the Postmaster General got $175,000 to relocate, and he wanted us to get a few grand to transfer. But, the transfer is voluntary. What we want to do is we want to get rid of the impediments that are in place when people want to transfer. So we talked about all the different language that's been in there since the 80s and the different things that restrict people's ability to move from one work location to another. We're a federal agency. What does the Postal Service care? And matter of fact, you would think it would be advantageous to them because if you're a postmaster in any town USA, would you rather hire a new letter carrier off the street, or would you rather bring in a transfer for a letter carrier that already knows the job? Which would you prefer? So it would seem that the employer would be willing to work with us on that type of a thing. But what I can tell you guys, having been involved in, somewhat, the president has always been over collective bargaining. I've never been the president, so I've never been over collective bargaining. I've never been like on the inside or whatever, but I've been on the executive council for 10 years. So I've been involved in to an extent, for this will be the third time of collective bargaining. And I can tell you what normally happens is we take the approach that we're going to go to the Postal Service and talk to them about these issues. Let's just take the transfer rules. And we ask them, hey, we want to modify the transfer rules. We want to make it more permissive. We want to figure out ways to facilitate transfers, mutual swaps, reduce the reasons why you're going to deny a transfer, expedite the situation, all these kind of things. And when the Postal Service has responded back to us that they're not interested in that particular topic, we basically throw it in the garbage can. We basically say, oh, we can't get that because, collective bargaining, you don't have a partner, You could say, we're going to take that to arbitration because the Postal Service is being unreasonable. But traditionally, we have not done that because the thought process is, and I don't want to speak for President Renfro, he can speak for himself, but he's always said that his concern would be putting a non-economic issue in front of an arbitrator when we're trying to win economic issues, and we don't want the arbitrator to say, oh, we'll give you this transfer thing, but we're not going to give you a pay raise. Trade off a economic thing for a non-economic, and that we wouldn't want that. Like that wouldn't be a good trade for us. We're like, no deal, no deal. So that's always been the concern. But the result has been that what I've seen is that these issues, these institutional issues, the uniform program, the grievance process, the hiring process, the distribution of hours, whatever you want to say, there's tons of them that they're not fixed. They're not resolved. And I look at the pay the same way. Does the post office want to be able to attract professional letter carriers? Yes or no? Right? Because if the answer is yes, the way you're doing it, non-career workforce paying $21 an hour that's how you get a body. That's how you get a body on the route. That's not how you get a professional letter carrier that wants to make a career out of public service. So my question to the Postal Service is, what is your goal here? Because if your goal is getting there, then you have to do something different. So I don't know. I talked a lot. What do you guys think? Who wants to jump in? Sherrie, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wish that, like, in the grievance thing, sometimes I think some of these, my branch doesn't have as many grievances as like bigger branches and stuff, but I sometimes think when they do, things over and over, like for pay, if the money came out of their pocket, maybe then they would care and think about it. But to them, I think they just, whatever, it's the post office that has to pay for it, not me. So they keep violating the same things over and over. And I've had supervisors come up to me and say, hey, we're just going to do the grievance, and they win, they get their way. And I just think that's wrong.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like if they had,
absolutely. So
if they had consequences for, real consequences, like maybe lose their job because they keep doing the same mistake over and over, maybe then they would be more serious about it and follow the contract.
To me, someone has to take ownership of this thing, and there's no better place to force those managers of the Postal Service to take ownership than in contract negotiations. Because if you go to them and you say, hey, the process, the way it's set up right now, you're losing X amount of dollars, this number of millions of dollars. And we're waiting on, there's an OIG report, President Renfro reported today that we expect to come out very soon. And it's going to talk about, the problems with the grievance process from the post office point of view, how much money they're losing, how much ill will, that kind of thing. So you take that information, you say, look, here's what's now. We're going to negotiate a contract, going forward for the next 3 years or whatever. But right now you're in a place where you're paying out all this money. You're not resolving issues. You're kicking them down the road. You end up paying more and more in structure, in the process itself and in payouts. So what do you want to do differently here? Like what you come to, like, instead of us always begging the Postal Service to, we want this, we want that. It's like, no, let's how do you want to do this? What do you want to do to resolve this issue? And I don't know. It just seems like we haven't been able to get there with the post office in recent rounds of contract negotiations and the 90-day period. So, this is just all of us internal. This is internal to the union. We don't start till February 25th. Those 90 days per the law is the time when we're supposed to be bargaining with the Postal Service. And we don't know if they're even prepared, like on day one to come to the table and, really get into things. So that's what I'm really interested to see and hear from President Renfro is what is his strategy to force the Postal Service into engagement? Can we shame them? Can we put out information, to the Board of Governors, to the media, to Congress? Like what is the thing that's going to get them legitimately to the bargaining table and not just perfunctory, not just going through the motion for the 90 days? How do we really get them to the table? Saqia, you're unmuted, so I think you got something you want to say here. And I want to go back to this holistic approach to the contract because I like to hear a little bit more about that. But what did you have?
Yeah, I would. That goes so much to understanding why management says no to things that seem win-win to us. Like, even when it comes to the financials, they say they don't have money, but every other craft, including management, is getting raises, but they say they don't have money to give us a raise. That makes no sense. On top of that, a lot of the grievances are the same thing over and over. For example, in my office, they typically don't call us in on our NS day, even though the new ODL list includes carriers who want to work on their NS day. So they won't call anyone in, but they'll force an 8-hour carrier to work overtime, even though they know that's going to be a grievance and they're going to have to pay us anyway.
Now someone else is gonna have to pay. That's grievance money. That's not my budget money or whatever, right?
But it is post
It's
office
crazy. It's
money.
all the post office, but there's all these different
Yeah.
departments, and it's crazy.
And I would just say, like, even that, where it's like, okay, they do have a new program for easing in PTFs and CCAs into the workforce. But then because management gets their bonuses based on how many hours we work, we're bringing back mail and they're not even maximizing the ODLs. They're just like, one day you have to be back by 7:30, even if the mail isn't delivered. And that's another grievance. Like, is there a way where like the post off or the NALC can have some say in the incentive structure for management? Like, okay, if your hours are where the post office wants you, but you're the highest grieved management doing the same nonsensical thing over and over, you're not getting a bonus. Like, there has to be some way to get them to follow what we agree to, the agreements. We have all these agreements. They don't honor them. They pay out all this money because their management is
What did
fucking stupid.
yeah.
And then they give them a raise, but say, oh, we don't have anything to give you. It makes no sense.
What were the ideas you guys coming out of? So the Article 15 committee, the way they had the structure, there was two groups in a room, and so I heard obviously my group that I was part of and the other group that was in the same room as me, and then I was able to get into one of the other rooms and hear one of the groups, but I never caught the Article 15 group. What did they say, or did they say anything about any ideas of tackling that non-compliance? How to get the Postal Service to comply with the terms of the contract. Did that come up at all in that Article 15 group?
I don't remember that one. I know they talked a lot about the backlog in Step B, but I don't remember anything about just non-compliance.
They were talking a lot of Article 15 was the problems with DRT.
Yeah.
That was pretty much what that was. Well, it does have, I did write down compliance of repetitive grievance issues. One of the things they did bring up was, I was going to say delaying like the grievances where you have route inspections, start time grievances where they would hold them until the grievances were back from the B team because there's such a backlog. But all I have was compliance of repetitive grievance issues. I didn't, they just said they were going to addressing.
Got you. Yeah, I know they're working on coming up with some type of proposal, and it's tough because the reason why it's tough, Saqia and everyone, is it's tough because the employer hires people as their representatives, and we have no control over who they hire. So the supervisor, the manager, the postmaster, they're representing the United States Postal Service, but they don't make it a condition of that employment that they manage the operation under the terms of the contract that they agreed to with the National Association of Letter Carriers. So, we can control what we do, which is we file a grievance. We say that's not right. We, whatever, we make them pay us more money. But at the end of the day, the control does come from the Postal Service. But how do you set up a structure? What you're saying, Saqia, is how do you get to a structure where the post office has the incentive to monitor that themselves, because they're the ones that are losing on the deal if they don't comply with the, with the terms, and that somehow forces them. So I'd be real interested to hear any concrete proposals that will come out of that committee, but they may not be ready yet to present anything concretely. And whatever they present, obviously you're going to have to work it over with the other side being the Postal Service, and you're going to want to have some more discussions internally within the union, because that's a big thing that we have had just a real big problem trying to tackle for a long time. But Wayne, you brought up that, I thought it was really cool. In the room I was in, got a nice round of applause when they made the proposal that if you go in and you adjust routes and the union files a grievance, before you can implement those route adjustments, that grievance has to be heard. And people really like that, big applause, because we've been in these situations where the post office just comes in and does whatever they want. They're not following the manuals. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. But yet, they're the employer. So they just eliminate assignments and mess up everyone's route. And you file a grievance and you try to get it fixed, but it's so far down the road. Transfers is another thing. If they deny a transfer, then they deny the transfer and they accept the next person's transfer. When you win that grievance sometime later down the road for the person whose transfer was denied, how do you get them into that post office when that post office is now fully staffed? Like, the reason why they were going in there is because there was a vacancy and they were going to fill the vacancy. Well, they filled the vacancy with somebody else. And we don't necessarily want to say, well, you got to send that person back to their old post office. That's not really the answer. So it would be helpful if you could resolve that grievance sooner rather than later, before the post office gives that transfer opportunity to the next person. But of course, you need it to be timely. And we were sitting in the room, and one of the people behind me was like, yeah, we need an expedited grievance process for this, an expedited process for this, so many things. It's like, why don't we just fix the grievance process? But that's really been a problem. To me, I've been sounding the bell on the grievance process for like 2-3 years now. And at first it was kind of like, that's just Mike, bothering us or whatever, I'm always raising stuff. But recently everyone's kind of coming around to the idea that we got a real problem on our hands, because it doesn't matter what the terms of the contract are if you can't enforce them. And if you don't have a workable grievance process, there's no way to enforce the terms. And it just gets bogged down. What are some of the things you guys heard? Like I was just mentioning that idea of making the grievance be heard prior to implementing any route changes if there's a dispute. That idea I thought was really cool. Did you guys hear any other ideas that you thought were really cool over the weekend?
I really like the idea of tying, showing whether or not we needed more carriers based on the overtime hours worked, because
based on hours worked, period. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yes, because right now it's just tied to the routes, and we know we have so many overburdened routes that the staffing is not going to be addressed if you're just saying, oh, well, you have this many routes, so you need this many carriers, even if some of these routes are actually like 10, 12-hour routes. So I thought that was a really good idea.
And the other thing that it would resolve is, somebody brought this up. You're seeing mechanization, you're seeing post offices. So you got the window and then you got behind the window. And basically we can do every job behind the window because the skill, there's not, you got the machines of sorting the parcels, whatever. Like, these are not high skilled jobs for the most part, except for the window clerk. It's a highly trained job to know all the ins and outs and be a window clerk. But the idea, and we've seen this a lot, where carriers are being assigned clerk work, carriers are being assigned rural carrier work. And if we had a system in place where all of our hours counted toward full-time assignments, and you just said, okay, how many hours did the letter carriers work in this installation in the past? You get an average for the last 6 months or whatever. And then you just divide that number by 40, and that's the number of full-time assignments you need, not based on the number of routes. Right now, the language really doesn't work. They modified 7.3A with the DOS award, and Article 7 is the complement and all that. they modified 7.3A to say that you will have one full-time carrier per every full-time assignment. Before, it didn't say that. It talked about hours being, and there was another proposal that because there's language in 7.3C about maximizing full-time assignments from PTFs. Like if a PTF is working a regular schedule for 6 months, it causes a conversion for the top of a PTF in that installation, but CCAs are not included in that count. Well, why not? CCAs are working those hours. Somebody working those hours in the auxiliary workforce is an indication that you need another full-time assignment. But so there's a couple ways to get there, but basically the hours of work should determine the number of full-time assignments, not the number of routes, like you said, Saqia. But I'll tell you guys this. I know for a fact, because I was on that bargaining committee, we submitted that as a proposal in 2023. And I'm telling you guys, that's my big concern with all this that we're doing. I don't want this to be a dog and pony show. I don't want this to be a bunch of smoke and mirrors and, we get everyone's hopes up. What plan do we actually have concretely to accomplish these things? Because without that, all the good ideas in the world are just, just not gonna bear any fruit and not gonna go anywhere. So, but that was awesome, Saqia. And I'm sorry I cut you off and started rambling on, but I was excited about that one too. Sherrie, did you hear anything that excited you over the weekend? Any ideas or concepts?
Well, I like the thing about getting extra annual leave for overtime.
Right, you could trade it instead of taking the pay, you could take the hours, the leave hours.
Yeah, I mean, that might be an incentive to some of these people that are getting forced.
Right. You could, maybe someone would volunteer if they knew that they were going to get annual leave hours.
Especially newer people. They don't get much annual leave, and if they had something coming up that they had something down the road, like maybe they're getting married or something, and that's a way to rack up some hour annual leave.
Yep, I like that one too. Wayne, did you hear anything that you liked?
Yeah, a couple of them I liked was trying to work in there the right to walk after 10 hours under 8.5F. I think that would be good, and it would force management to manage better than they're managing.
And 11.5 for the auxiliary workforce, or per the ELM 432.32.
Yes,
they put that was in there too. Yeah,
right. A couple of the Article 16s I kind of liked was requiring union notification on discipline. Because right now, no matter how many times I tell carriers, when we get done with the PDI, I say, if you get discipline, you have got to let me know as soon as you get it. And multiple times, I actually found out I had discipline for a carrier. He was issued discipline when we were going through equitability because they showed me his discipline for where he called out sick on his non-scheduled day, and they didn't want to pay him the 8 hours, in equitability.
You didn't even know.
They wanted to take it off because he called out. I didn't. I went to him afterwards and I said, "Did you get disciplined?" He's like, "I'm not sure." I go, "Well, I just sat in a meeting with management and they showed me a letter of warning." And then he's like, he opened his drawer. He goes, "Oh yeah, they gave me this."
Oh,
and,
man. How many days ago was that?
Pull my hair out. And then, and I mean, we were at like day 10. We were at day 10. So I do hope they can somehow figure out how to get it that the union has to be notified when discipline is issued. And lowering discipline from 2 years to 1 year. I think 2 years is a long time in a file when they forget to tell you. So those were two that stuck out. That
notifying the union, Wayne, also would come into play where sometimes they mail the discipline to the carrier, and then we get into this whole thing that did they receive it and all that. Hey, just give a copy to the union. I've been telling them, that for years around here, but they don't want to do it because they want to play a gotcha game. But if you put it in the contract and codify it, then it would be a requirement. Hey, give the union a copy. I love it. Anything else?
Yes, those were a couple. Yeah, increasing. I did like. I think somebody said they were looking at increasing sick leave dependent care, or maybe trying to assign amount of hours to, where you can have it. Maybe not 80 hours for a year, but if you had 40 hours for this person, 40 hours for your dad, if he's elderly, or mom, and then if you got kids where you could use your sick leave, more than 80 hours of sick leave dependent care, but maybe have a limit with a certain person, something like that. We have a lot of carriers, the parents are getting elderly, and you can get FMLA on that, but you only get 80 hours of sick leave dependent care. And, if your parent's in the hospital, that 80 hours is gone quick. And then you're either going to have to take a leave without pay or burn your annual leave. So that one kind of stuck out, to me a little bit there, that so many carriers, you got two parents, 80 hours doesn't go a long way if you got to take them to doctor's appointments and stuff like that because they can't drive or anything. So, just kind of shows you that it's not just Article 8 stuff they're talking about. You got overtime stuff where you can get annual leave, talking about Article 16, talking about Article 10 with sick leave dependent care, stuff like that. So those were the ones that kind of stood out for me.
Yeah, and the example you just gave, so you're talking about somebody using their earned sick leave, and so why is there so many restrictions on that? And at the very least, if it's going to be an 80-hour limit, why not let it be an 80-hour limit per family member, that kind of thing, up to 80 hours per family member? Because at the end of the day, why does the employer want to restrict your use of your own earned sick leave? They're not giving you any extra sick leave out of the deal. You know what I mean? But those are the kind of things that you would hope that we would have a willing partner when we get into contract negotiations, and they would say, oh yeah, that's no skin off our back. We can do that. You know what I mean? Make the job more palatable, make it easier. Some of the scheduling things, and there's just a lot of things I think we can make some improvements if we have a willing partner to do that. So I saw, what did I see? I just wrote it down. That in the NERP, that there be something concrete that would happen if they want to separate somebody during the 90-120 or the 90-day probationary period for PTFs. That it would be some type of a review process, or they would not be able to separate that new employee if they had not met certain criteria in the NERP. Because we're seeing that a lot, where they don't meet the criteria in the NERP, and then they separate the person, and we're like, well, if you would have done the stuff the right way, then you might not have wanted to separate the person. But that's a really tough grievance to win, and but it would be good to have some language like that. They brought that up. I thought that was pretty good. Under 16.7, they said, until the Postal Service gives the carrier a notice of charges, the carrier should be in admin leave status. And I agree with that 1,000%. They should not be able to put a carrier off the clock without charges. I think that's one of the things we're entitled to. So take as long as you want, because they're always saying, well, we're going to investigate and we'll let you know later. And it's like, you're investigating while I'm not getting paid. That's not how this is supposed to go. That's not the idea behind Article 16. So I like that one too. Anything else, you guys?
I would also like to see, because in our office that is like running rampant, they'll just have carriers they don't like and put them on EP. I would like to see, like, if it goes to the panel and they decide that it's like frivolous, that management should get some sort of actual punishment. So because as it is, it's like, oh, the person gets to go back to work, maybe they get their back pay, but management doesn't get as much of it as a slap on the wrist when they're just being cruel to carriers because I refuse to follow unsafe order or whatever the issue may be.
Right, because they're mad at me over something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the 90s, there used to be actual paper suspensions, and we felt like that was a deterrent. So management would give you just a stupid write-up, and you would end up getting like a vacation out of the deal because they would give you like 7 days off work, and then you'd win the grievance, and then they'd have to pay you for the 7 days that you were off work. So, I mean, I used to get them disciplines all the time, and it didn't bother me in the least bit. I'm like, all right, another vacation. But it seemed like it was a deterrent against management issuing just kind of bogus or, not warranted discipline. And that was one of the suggestions we heard over the weekend is maybe have some type of chart for the supervisor, like, 1, 2, 3, 4 strikes, whatever. Like at a certain point, you just can't issue no more discipline because you're just throwing stuff at the wall. You're not actually following the real disciplinary process. That would be interesting, some type of language like that. Anything else on the Saturday before we get into Sunday? Because Sunday was the actual rap session today, this morning. I'll give you guys a second if you want to jump in on anything else on Saturday.
A couple of things. One other one, I did like requesting special inspection on aux routes because when you have an aux route that's over 8 hours and you can't convert anybody, you can't file the grievance on it because there's nobody on it. And,
Right.
I've lost those at the B team before and it sucked. But there was a lot of chatter about 204Bs, and there was a lot of really good chatter about 204Bs, cutting 204B time from 120 days to 60.
Yep.
I saw in there must have 5 years to become a supervisor. 5 years of career, not career, but letter carrier work.
Right.
And I think Belinda Croy got up at the mic and had mentioned, which I thought was pretty good, why not have the 120 days be 120 days in a rolling year before you pull them off the route? That way that circumventing that they constantly try to do is no longer in play. Sure, you come down for a week and use your annual leave, which in my office, management won't do that. They've told the carrier, if you're coming down off your route to save your route, you're not taking annual leave. You're going to go run your route for a couple of weeks before you go back up. So I've got them to at least agree with that. But so many offices, they don't have anything like that. And then they tried to spread out their weeks to keep their route. And I thought that 120 days that she made off the floor in a rolling year was pretty good. I thought that would stop the circumventing. You want to be a supervisor? I'm all for you being a supervisor. Be a supervisor. Give up your route.
Right.
So I thought those were a couple of Article 41s that came up.
Yeah, it's the holding position
Yes.
in the letter carrier craft that hurts us. And a couple other things on the 204Bs was if there's a 204B that's absent, like a ORNA on the route not available, that also qualify in addition to all the other conditions for an ORNA for a full-time assignment. That was one I saw. And then the other one was you can't mandate overtime. Like you can't go off the list and force someone to work overtime if the 204B is available. They're right there, We've had so many situations where the 204B is sitting at the desk talking about, well, I guess I got to mandate you to work. It's like, no, what about you? So I thought that was cool. There was a lot of suggestions around the 204B.
That came up.
Right.
And that came up with the holiday thing too, where if you have a 204B on the desk before you mandate somebody on the holiday schedule, you got to work the 204B, carry and mail that day. I thought that was good too.
Yep. Saqia, you had something?
Yeah, I like the requirement that they serve at least 5 years. I don't know if it needs to be 5, but just you have to know what you're doing in this organization before you can like supervise other people. I think that's common sense. And I also liked a requirement for a certain amount of time, and then management or the 204B needs to make a decision, because having someone as a 204B holding up a spot for like 5 years is just it's just crazy. It makes no sense.
Yeah. And it hurts us because then the complement is not right and the staffing is not right and that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. All right, that was good. We got a lot out of that Saturday. Different format this year for this rap session. Sunday, there was one change that affected you, Saqia, but probably didn't affect Sherrie or Wayne, which is that constitutionally, the language is that the rap session, I was trying to call it by it's the national conference. The national conference is for branch presidents only, or maybe their designees, but I know it says branch presidents only. And so President Renfro decided this year, look, there's a limited amount of time, and so the people coming to the microphones should be the branch presidents or their designee, but anyone is welcome to be in the room, to participate in all the activities, that kind of thing. And he made a reference to it being similar to like a national convention. If you're a delegate, you have the right to speak and you have a right to vote and all that. But anyone can come as a guest, and that's fine. But they don't have the same rights to participate as the person who's a delegate at the national convention, or in this case, was the branch president. So, did you guys have a problem with that, or do you have any angst with that at all?
Yes, at a convention, the people coming from the branch are typically all delegates. So the people coming from the branch can't participate. Like if you're bringing a family member, of course, they're not going to have the same rights. But to say that only a president or a designee from a branch can speak is just, we're supposed to be an equal body. And they're putting all these rules into place, like even just like the breakfast where the rank and file had a continental and then the people on the board had like a hot breakfast on the third floor. Like, what are we doing? We're a union. We're all.
It was a pretty bad breakfast, but you're right. It was a different breakfast.
I don't care. It's just.
I know you're right. You're right.
What are we doing?
You're right. Why didn't everyone get that? You're
exactly
right. You're absolutely
exactly.
Right. I don't understand that either. That's a great point on the breakfast. Now on the rap session, and I know like Melissa Rakestraw was very passionate that everyone should be allowed to speak and that kind of thing, and I think you feel the same way, Saqia. To me, the format of it, if you're gonna have to, there's a time management thing in there, somewhere, right? And it was a little weird to me that you had a 3-hour rap session from 8 to 11, and the president speaks for 2 hours, and then there's only an hour left for the other 800 people, to comment or whatever. And the other thing, I was surprised that we never put a time frame. People would get to the mic, and some of them, they were pretty good as far as making their points, but some of them were kind of long-winded, and you're like, all right, is there going to be like a 2-minute limit, or like every funeral I've been to in the past, whatever, you got comments, just keep it to 2 minutes kind of thing. But something like that, maybe with the format. And then you say, okay, time permitting, anyone can come speak, but we want to make sure that the people that are, the presidents or the people that are designated to speak here constitutionally, they're going to have the opportunity. And President Renfro did point out as well, if you don't like the constitutional language, by all means, go to the convention in 2026 and make a proposal that we change that constitutional language. So I don't know, Sherrie or Wayne, what do you guys think?
Me personally, I don't have an issue with the rule. I was there as the state president. I had two of my young guys, and I'm at the area that I've been here long enough that I've got 2 young guys that when I go in the next 4 or 5 years, they're the ones that are taking over, and I wanted them here. The branch paid to send them here. As a state president, then I can delegate one of those 2 as my rep. it's the branch president or their designee. So I was able to designate one of them.
Right.
The Saturday, anybody could speak. On the Sunday, my thing there is if I'm the branch president and I've got two guys with me and they want a question asked, I'll go up to the mic and ask the question that they want asked.
Right.
So their question's going to get asked. And, and I'll give Renfro credit. He answered every question and we ran long. I think we went to about 11:30. But there wasn't anybody at the mic afterwards, but generally I wouldn't think you would be there without your branch president, or if you were the designee, your branch president has already authorized you to speak. If you do have branches that are bringing 3 or 4 or 5 people, if your branch president is there, whatever question the group wants asked can go right up there and ask. So I agree with you on this. Some people get up there and they would ramble and they would say the same thing over, so 8 minutes of talking, which probably could have been done in 2 minutes, and that kind of prolonged stuff. So, I wouldn't have any issue if you gave everybody, hey, 5 minutes or whatever, and said, whatever you want to do is try to keep it, on point. We'll say on point.
Yeah.
So that's just
that
my
occurred
take.
to me. Yeah, no, I think all that is fair. One thing that did occur to me is maybe we're not utilizing the format of a rap session. Like the screen would just show whoever was the speaker, usually the president or maybe someone at the microphone. But if we're talking about a particular issue, I mean, maybe there's something visual you can put up on the screen. Maybe there's some words that you would read and, some type of outline of the discussion so you can follow along. I'm looking out at the audience and I'm seeing a lot of people's eyes glazing over and, maybe they partied a little too much on Saturday night kind of thing. But I don't care for the format where the president gets up there and speaks for a long, long time. And then you get to like interaction. The president is speaking for a long period of time without interruption. And there's nothing on the screen kind of letting you know where he's at in his speech, his lecture, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I think maybe there's some better ways to break that up and utilize different media, video, text, different things like that with the screens and stuff. I don't know. That was just a thought I had kind of sitting up there. But I thought the discussion was really good. I thought the president's presentation was thorough. He focused on three points: collective bargaining, and particularly the economic issues in collective bargaining. And the second one was the threats to the Postal Service, like privatization, things like that, more like legislative threats. And the third one was about the future of the Postal Service. And I was very interested in that third topic. I think we're at a crossroads with the Postal Service where he mentioned, and we had solid financial reports already, at least I had, but I don't know if you guys caught, parcel volume went down by 6% in fiscal year 2025 versus 2024. To me, that's huge. I mean, we had this big problem with electronic substitution back in like 2010, 2011, 2012. The first class mail volume was going down. The first class mail volume is the only volume that the post office has monopoly on. And so that's like guaranteed revenue, and that helps to support, the president was explaining how it helps to support the universal service obligation that the Postal Service has. And he made the point that we add 2 million delivery points every year, meaning that the costs of making the universal service obligation, a delivery to everyone in America, it goes up every year. And traditionally, the revenues have offset that. But and then we started getting a lot of parcels, right? And that helped to offset the same thing. But if the parcel volume is going to start going down or leveling off, we got a problem on our hands. And a lot of people had suggestions about ways that the Postal Service I think Bobby from Boston, he's like, we should own next day delivery. Like that's us. We talked about having 200,000 mobile post offices in a letter carrier being out in that community. I mean, you can give us whatever you want, right? Like get that into the mail stream. They're talking about returns for some of the other shipping companies. You can return that stuff through the postal service real easily. We have 30,000 post offices, and we have 200,000 letter carriers plus the rural carriers, I guess, out in every community. And so, how do we maximize that asset? Because the deliveries per delivery, it was 5.5 pieces, and now it's down to 2.4 pieces per delivery. And our strength has always been density, that it's cheaper. They call it like the economy of scale or whatever. The most efficient way and the best way to set up a delivery network is when I go to that delivery point, that house, that apartment, whatever, that business, I'm giving them everything, right? But now that's not the case, because you got a lot of private companies coming in and making their own deliveries, and we're making some, and we're making less mail delivery, but we're making some parcel delivery, and it just hasn't caught up. And the question is just, will this model work, or is there? I mean, I think there is obviously something that we need to do with that model. So, what did you guys find interesting about the discussion today at the RAP session?
I think that the number that me, those numbers that I wrote, those numbers down that you just read, that he said that this year they expect Amazon to deliver more packages than we will deliver.
Yep.
And that number shocked me. I had no idea that Amazon was delivering that many packages, because we deliver their packages on Sunday. I know they deliver in our areas. One of the guys with me said that he thought FedEx in his city was delivering Amazon, and it started last week. But so they just lost a lot of Amazon packages there. But just the fact that Amazon is now delivering more of their own packages than we deliver, that shocked me. And that's kind of scary.
And Wayne,
because we have that network.
Not only their own, Amazon is starting to accept packages from people that are not in the Amazon platform, like other people that want to send
like
stuff.
Walmart.
Yeah. That's and so basically they're building their own delivery network to directly compete against the Postal Service delivery network. And like I was saying before, we always had the first class mail monopoly to offset the universal service obligation. If you don't have the revenues coming in to justify the universal service obligation, then you got a problem on your hands. And we're starting to get to that point, I think, if something doesn't change real quickly. Sherrie, do you have anything, or Saqia from today you thought was really interesting?
I like the idea about the return service. Like, I have a bunch of customers who will get something FedEx or UPS and want to return it and just leave it out on their doorstep, thinking I can pick it up. Like, no, you have to go to that other person. So I do think that would be like really.
It should be easy enough to print out a label or whatever, somehow register it in the postal system. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a way to do this, right?
Because we're going to their house anyway.
Exactly.
And they think they can just put it outside and we'll take it. They already think this is what we do. So, yeah.
You know what was funny? Even funnier than the fact that I got you guys confused is the fact that I was thinking Sherrie was talking, and I'm like, how is she talking if she's muted? in my mind. Guess it's been a
Mike,
long day.
I think they need to put the service back in Postal Service. When
we talked about that today too.
When they do the stand-up talks in our office about doing, when they do the stand-up talks in our office about Customer Connect, I'm sorry, but it's an absolute joke. I had several leads that I put in, and the customer, got our free boxes and everything. And I set it all up. I put it in 4 times, and no one ever once went out and talked to her. And I kept talking to the postmaster about it. They just ignored it. And so she just ended up going somewhere else. And, that happens a lot. Like I had the mall in my route, and Ulta Beauty wanted to come with us. Nobody would go out. So now they go through UPS. And the shoe shop, well, they're not there no more, but they were another one. It was like they just totally ignore that. And I mean, that's in this point in time with the parcels going down, we need that business to keep it going.
The only way it's going to work is if they put a letter carrier on the clock to coordinate
Correct.
the activity. That's the only way it's going to work. And
we care.
That's one of those things that you get into contract negotiations and you say, this is something that can help you as an agency, as a company. But you gotta have someone on the other side of the table that gives a shit about the health of the company, and growing the business and bringing in new revenue and, prioritizing service and consistency to the public, all these things that we care about that most of the board supervisors and managers and postmasters, they don't care about it, but hopefully the people higher up, postmaster general and stuff would care about those things and then would negotiate with us. So Renee and Sarah, you guys not having been there this weekend, at least I didn't see you guys. What do you guys have any questions for us or things you want to know about the weekend there?
So it's gonna be it's gonna sound so silly, but I don't understand the difference between the RAP sessions and the COPs.
So I can do that probably real quick. The RAP session or the national conference is in the Constitution. It's something that the National Association of Letter Carriers as a union puts on. It's a requirement in the Constitution. The Committee of Presidents meetings are meetings of a gathering of the presidents of those branches. It's not an event of the National Association of Letter Carriers. It would be like if like you work at Villa Park, like if you had a Committee of Villa Park meeting. Like you're not an official anything, but you guys want to get together, go ahead. The Committee of Presidents is just a bunch of presidents getting together at a location, and they do it twice a year, but they're not an entity of the NALC. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know if it makes sense, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
What else you got?
That was it, because you asked pretty much everything else that I wanted to really ask about.
Awesome. We try to be thorough, Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's go around and see if you guys got any final comments before we log off here. Saqia, you're up first. You got any final thoughts?
No, I think we covered everything. I thought I really did appreciate that it seemed like they listened to our complaints about the lack of transparency and put all of our requests up front and how they were working on it. I just wish I felt like they were fighting harder.
Well, let's see. On the point of transparency, and Wayne, you brought it up earlier as well. I want to see what the transparency is going to look like after February 25th. Because keep in mind, this is not contract negotiations. What we're really talking about is transparency during contract negotiations, and they haven't started yet. So we'll see. We'll see. Wayne?
It was totally unexpected. I thought it was just going to be a lot of training. It kind of felt like we were on the inside a little bit more than being on the outside with all of the discussions on what was going on. And I got to say, all the business agents and executive officers that were up there and some of the assistants to the presidents that were up there, I thought they were very good. And I thought when people brought up some stuff from the floor, yeah, I really believe we do. And listening to them talk about, a lot of times they talked about why we were asking for this. And so that kind of, that might explain some stuff to, some people that are new and might not know. And so I was very pleased with it. It caught me off guard. And like I said, I know some people did not come because they thought it was just going to be the same old thing. And unfortunately for them, I think they really missed out. It was, and like I said, Saturday was open to anybody. You didn't have to be a branch president to speak your mind. And another thing they did on Saturday was the committees, said, come up to the mic, and out of all the stuff that we told you, what do you think should be prioritized first? Tell us what you think is most important to you guys sitting out there. And I thought that was good too. So I'm not going to lie. I was impressed with Saturday. I was really impressed with it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were. That's some really good feedback. And the point you make about, because Sarah, you asked a question about a committee of presidents meeting. And I know a lot of people that said, either one, I've been to these training sessions before. Two, I've heard President Renfro before. You know what I mean? Like, it's just going to be the same thing. And I took a lot of notes. I thought it was a lot of new stuff, and the engagement and the involvement of everybody I thought was really cool. So, Sherrie, you got any final thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne.
Yes, I kind of, I'm there with Wayne on the same thing. Like, I took a lot of notes too. I thought it was, I liked how they went through each article. And to be honest, there's some articles that I've never even looked at. So it was kind of interesting when they mapped them out, what they were. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. It's just weird how you.
Yeah.
So I think this is something they should do moving forward, and be more transparent. And I think it's important to hear what the members want and what they think is a priority, because sometimes what what national thinks is a priority is different than what us out there doing the job every day is a priority. Do you get what I mean?
Yep. And it was a good format for that. It was a good format to be able to hear from everybody and get different perspectives and all of that. That was good. I didn't get a chance
and I did like the trying to get rid of the 204B. Kudos to whoever wants to go into manager, whatever, but there is a lot of circumventing. I bet you could go in every office that has a 204B and they'll agree that they do a lot of circumventing.
Yeah, it's a lot of gamesmanship,
Yeah.
And it hurts us in the sense that we don't have the staffing that we need in those.
I mean, in our office, there'd be days it's like 30 below out and 7 people call in, which is hard for us. And here's the 204B just sitting at the desk doing nothing and telling you, hey, you got to go out and work 12, 14 hours, in the cold.
I firmly, I mean, the 204B thing came up a lot, but I still firmly believe that if we're going to get to a solution where the post office kind of works, you got to get rid of the board supervisor. I think that job has been automated. All of the data is in the system. All of the, it's been automated. Yeah. We don't need you no more. And we don't need the harassment. No. There's no street standard anyway. And it's just a bunch of dead weight, in my opinion. What I was going to say, I didn't get a chance to get you guys feedback on this, but on the workroom floor now, as far as the active carriers, and this really surprised me, only 30% are at top step. So only 30% are carriers that have like 12 years or more of career service. 70% are not at top step. And a lot of times in our gatherings, you don't have that kind of a ratio. Like that's like a 2-to-1 ratio, right? But you don't normally, sometimes you don't get the same perspective of the newer carriers and the things that are of interest to them and the things that they want and the things that are important to them. And to the extent that this weekend, I think we were able to hear from everybody and get different perspectives. I think that's valuable. I think that was good. So I don't know. I should have brought it up earlier, but
I do want to touch up on that too, because I've got two younger guys here, and they did point out to me how they felt like real young compared to, the makeup of the crowd. And, and I've heard I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday, those at top pay don't care about those that are not top pay. 70% I could see being about right, because just looking at my seniority list,
right.
We've got 130 and for 2013. And, I do want to go on record as a guy that's top pay and been top pay forever. I don't think that way about people that are lower pay. And, just for the record, and I don't put this on social media, I'm not afraid to speak my mind on social media. My wife started as a CCA in 2017. She's not top pay. She's one of those that's in there. And, they drop the two lower ones, and she doesn't get the bump in pay. So, there's a lot of us older carriers that do care about the carriers that are coming up in the pay scale and the time of service that it takes. I will say this on that subject. It did come up about trying to figure out a way to reward the CCAs that didn't get that bump, whether
step
they're
credit.
the former CCAs.
Yeah, get step credit. For all
you
your
drop
CCA
the two
time.
lower pay scales and do something. Yeah, like the TEs, like they did with the TEs a while back. So that was something
Like
that
Sherrie got when Sherrie got
I'm
that
going to
big
let the branch
4-step
know.
jump.
Whether they do it or not, who knows?
Yeah,
There you go.
Sherry's over there smiling.
And you know
she knows
what?
she got that 4-step
While
jump.
you don't think the post office would do
Hey,
it,
but
they
I
did
didn't
it with
like that
TEs.
$6 pay cut.
Whew, that was rough.
Yes, it was.
22.15 to 16.25.
We do need to get younger people in there. That was brought up today. I don't know if it was Melissa that brought it up, but even the two that came with me, they're both in their 30s. And we got to get younger people in here too. And the ones that are coming to a lot of these meetings are top pay. I can understand, the concern from those that are in the pay scale. Well, you're top pay, you've got yours, you don't care. But a lot of us do, but we do need to get some more younger people at these meetings, more younger people involved. And, as we get older, we got to get the people behind us. That's why I've got these two guys here, because in 20 years of where I've gotten my branch, when I leave, I don't want it to go back where it was.
Right.
And I've got the two young guys here, Billy Poozer and Zach Foster. And, they haven't even been to a national convention. This is the first time they've done anything like this. They loved it. Younger people involved.
Tell Billy and Zach we're gonna get them on the show next time. We're gonna hear directly from them. See what they got to say. That was cool. I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your feedback. Taking the time to head out to sunny Cleveland. It wasn't that bad. Weather was decent. Mailman weather out there, but we were inside anyway. All right. On that note, I think we're ready to wrap.
Thank you all for being here. It's much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. All right. Cue the music.